discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fatness Nerd Run-Throughs, and this time we're doing a how to play for Fate of the Elder Gods, a game that came out this year that I was on my radar for the Gen Con, you know, the top 10 Gen Con list. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing a how to play for it. And what we usually do is we do the setup, and then I will go into how you play this game. Okay, so as with almost every single game in the world, you're going to set up the board in the middle of the table to where it can be easily reached from all players. During this setup, I'm actually, and how to play, I'm pretty much just going to set up for a two-player game. I wanted to stress that there is a variant rules for two players. So I'm going to set up for a two-player game, but the rules I will explain will count for 3 and 4, so just add another person. Anyway, so you're going to set up the board, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take out these Elder God cards, and all they have on the other side is the art and name of the Elder God. And you will shuffle these and deal 2 to each player. Now, I have my own personal house rule. You are more than welcome to steal it if you wish. I don't like to let people choose who they get. I think it's a more fair advantage for all players to get it randomly, because if you've played the game before and you're playing with newer people, then if you get to choose, then, I mean, yes, it's still 2 at random, but if you still get to choose, then you're going to have a slight advantage. But that is my own personal rule. Anyway, so you will shuffle them and deal 2 to each player, and we're going to go with... so for this one, and they get to choose. So Ithaqua, yeah, and then you have Tisakulugu. So we'll choose that one. We'll just set it right there for the moment. And then the other 2 are Azaroth, or Azathoth, and Shub-Niggurath. Let's go with Shub. Old Shubby. And then you'll just put the other ones, you know, back in the box. It doesn't really matter. Then what you will do is you will take your lodge mat, which is what these look like, that correspond to the elder one that you picked. So there was, Ithaqua, which they have their own special abilities and stuff, which I'll get to later. So you'll take that and you'll just place it, you know, somewhere near the board. Let me move this down a little bit. And then you have Shub-Niggurath, which was right at the end. Alright, so then what you will do is you will take your summon track, which that's what this thing off to the left is, right there. This is your summon track, and you will take a corresponding color that you want to be, and we'll do red for Ithaqua. So you'll take this little token right here, and you will place it up on the top spot where it, you know, where the symbols match. So you'll just place that right up there. And then for the other person, they will obviously do the same. Now remember, rules are a little bit different. In a 2-player game, it's just easier for setup. Then what you will do is you will take your cultists that match the color of your token. And so for Ithaqua, you will take your bag of cultists, and then you will divide them up into 7 will go into your lodge. And what your lodge is, because other games will, or other things will reference it, this square box right here is known as your lodge. So you will take 7 of your cultists and place them in there. Yeah, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you will take 7 and you will put them into the abyss. What the abyss is this middle spot right here. There's not assigned sections. You can just, I mean, like the game, you know, breaks out into four sections, but this is what the board's made up. So you put 7 in there. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then with the rest of them, you will put 1 in each location. Each of these different spots is a location. So yeah, like that. And then you will do the same for the other players. Okay, now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take these spell cards that all have different backs, like so, and then, you know, actual spells. So you will take them and you will deal 3 to each player as their starting hand, and of course I'll go over spells in you know, in the actual how to play, but just know that you need to deal 3 to each player, and that will be their starting hand. So 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Woo! And then you can actually take the remainder of this deck and place it over by the library, like right here. But the first thing you got to do is you actually need to place one card face down so the symbols are showing at each location, right under the symbols that are actually there. So like this. So now I'm going to move the Lodge and Cultist boards out of the way to make room for the actual board. So you will do that, then you will take this deck and place it over by the library somewhere. You can place it on it or somewhere near it. Like you can do something like that. Right in the middle, between red and green. Then what you will do is you will take the artifact deck, and the artifact deck looks something like this, and like that. They look like crates, and you will shuffle these and put them over by the museum, but you will keep 2 face up. And then this is kind of what they will look like. So you will do 2 face up because these are what you can choose from when you go to do a particular action, and then you just place it over like so, pretty much like a lot of other games. Now, the last thing you're going to do, well, not the last thing, but the other thing you're going to do with the cards is you'll take these gate cards like this, and there's nothing but special really about them to look at, and you'll place them over by the ceremony spot, which is the spot with the white symbol right there, and you can just place them also in the middle between white and yellow. Then you will take curse cards, and curse cards have these wax seals, and you'll shuffle them and you'll just place them next to the board. Doesn't really matter a whole lot where they go, because one person can just reach for them, but they don't go to any specific location on the board. Then you will take investigators. Now investigators are the silver pieces that look like this, and you will also place one of these in each location with the cultists that you placed earlier. And you can do all this at once when you're placing cultists, because this can be 1 for each person and 1 investigator. Then you will take the remainder of them and you will put them over into a spot also, near the side of the board. Doesn't really matter where, but within maybe easy reach of all players. Then you're going to take a fate piece. A fate piece is this thing, and you will place it into the spot, the other world, kind of on the half moon symbol. You can just place it right there. And then in a 2-player game, there's another one in here. Once again, not doing this for 2 players. Not doing the rules for 2 players. This is just within easy setup. For more storage, you will take all of these. These are elder signs right here, and you'll place them near the board as well, just because they will come up later. And then you will take all the fate dice, which are these, like so. These are the fate dice. You will place them near the board as well. So now it's just general, maintenance and organization. You can put it everywhere that works best for your table. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to determine first player, which you take their cards that you dealt them at the beginning. You will shuffle them, and then you will draw one out, and Sithakawa is the first player. Then these just go back in the box. They will no longer be used. And that's how you set up Fate of the Elder Gods. In Fate of the Elder Gods, it's kind of like a reverse Arkham Horror. You play Cultists trying to summon your Ancient One, but also you're trying to finagle and make it to where your opponents can also not summon their Ancient One. The first one to summon their Ancient One wins, and you're also trying to not be screwed over by the investigators that are managed by the game. So Fate of the Elder Gods is a cutthroat game that it has like a twist to it, mainly because it's the cultists that you're playing and not the investigators like almost every other Arkham Horror or Cthulhu game out there. So let's go into how to play. Okay, so Fate of the Elder Gods works a little bit different. So let's move up this lodge here. I'll probably just be using one lodge for the example purposes of everything. What you do is you will take your starting hand, which were the 3 spell cards that were handed to you, and they all have different backs on them, different symbols, and the symbols correspond to each location. There are 6 locations that you can go to. There is the library, the gathering, Streets of Arkham, the ceremony, museum, and other worlds. And how you do anything with those locations is you actually decide where you're going to move this piece, the fate piece. And how you do that is you choose one of your cards. So if I wanted to play this one, if I want to go to the Streets of Arkham, I would play this card, and that would move the piece, the fate piece, to that spot. If I played this one, it would go to the library. And if I played the blue one, it would go to the museum. So that's kind of how you move around the board. And that's the first thing you're going to do. You cannot keep the fate piece in the same spot. It has to go somewhere. So let's just say I would like to go, well, it's difficult because I'm gonna have to explain each location. So before I decide on moving and explaining everything else after that, let me go ahead and go through what each location does. So each location actually has a basic action and also a control action. And for every location, what control means is if you have 3 or more of your own cultists there, and you have more cultists there than everyone. So right now, even if I had 2 cultists here, then I don't have control because I don't have 3 or more. But if I had 3 there, now I would have control. What control means is that it already automatically allows you to do the second action. You always get to do the first action, but if you have control, you get a second action as well in that location. So I will explain the basic action you get to do for each location, as well as the control action if you happen to be there. So what the Otherworld space does, that space allows you to sacrifice your own cultists, and this is the basic action. You can roll, you roll a fate die for each cultist you have there, and for each result of a Cthulhu or a tentacle, you kill them. And what that allows you to do is that you actually move up your summoning track for each one that you successfully kill. So this is your summoning track. For each one you kill, you move up 1, 2, 3, or however many cultists you have there. And then any cultist that you killed goes up into the abyss. So that is the basic action of the Otherworld. The control action is where for each Cthulhu that you rolled, they don't die. So they actually get to, instead of going to the abyss, they go back into your lodge. So that is the Otherworld. The library is where you actually get more cards into your hand. Remember, you start with a base of 3. There is no hand limit. So whenever you go to the library, you get to draw 3 spell cards from the deck, and additionally you can ready 2 spells. Now I haven't explained readying spells, but that is where you would go if you want, because you can only ever ready 1 spell. If you go there, you can ready 2 spells, and then if you actually have a control there, then you get to ready a spell for free. And that'll make a lot more sense when I explain readying spells, but just know, library, you get more cards, you can ready more spells, and if you control it, you get to do that for free. So that is the library. The museum, which is right here, which is blue, that is where you actually get to take some artifacts. So whenever you go there, the basic action is you get to choose one of the 2 artifacts, or you can draw from the top of the deck blindly. So once you do that, once you take one of them, they both get removed, and then they get replaced with 2 more. So if I take this one, then this one gets discarded and 2 more show up. One does not just replace it. Then And then the artifacts, the number of artifacts that you can hold are actually 3. So if you ever get a 4th one, you have to discard one. If you control that area, then you actually you may sacrifice up to 3 cultists at the museum, and that's how you can get rid of elder signs from your lodge, which I'll explain elder signs later as well. Just know that whenever you go there, basic action allows you to take an artifact. If you do take one, then whatever's remaining gets discarded and replaced with 2 more. And then if you control it, then you may sacrifice up to 3 cultists at the museum to the abyss, and then destroy an elder sign for each cultist sacrificed that way. So that is the museum. The ceremony spot is where you actually get to trigger your Ancient One's ability. So if you go there, you trigger your ability, which is on your card underneath your Ancient One's name, and then you also will get a Otherworld card. And what this does, it basically counts as a wild for anything. So you would get to take that. That's a basic action. If you control it, then you can sacrifice 2 of your cultists at the ceremony and advance your summon token 1 space on your lodge board. So that is the ceremony spot. The Streets of Arkham space, whenever you go there, you basically take 2 investigators from the supply and give them out to other players. That you can do both of them at 1, you can do 1 to 2 different people. It doesn't really matter. Then you initiate a raid. I also haven't explained raids yet, but just know that raids are very, very bad, and you want that to happen to other people. If you control that space, then you can sacrifice one of your cultists to the abyss and play 1 investigator on each other player's lodge. So that is actually happen after the raid. So the new investigators that get placed there don't initiate a raid. So that is the Streets of Arkham. And the last space is the Gathering. The Gathering allows you to take 3 of your cultists from the abyss and put them into your lodge. What it also allows you to do is allows you to move 1 cultist of yours from the Gathering and put them in any other location on the board. If you control it, you can move any number of your cultists from that location to anywhere else. So basic action, you can move 1. Control action, you can move all of them. Okay, so now you know what each location does, even though you don't know everything about, the game. So, on your turn, you will actually play any readied spells, which I haven't explained readying spells yet, but you would do that. Then you move, and like I said, how you move is you decide which one of your cards to move the fate piece to. Well, you have these. They also count as spells on the back, so you kind of want to decide, do I want to use a spell, or how badly do I want to move to that location? So, let's say I wanted to move to yellow. Then what you would do is you would take the card that you're going to use, and you actually will place it underneath the space that the fate piece is currently on. So not to the space you want to move it to, it's the space that the fate piece is currently on. Then you move the fate piece over there. Well, let's actually say I'm moving to blue because it's easier to look at. So let's say I'm moving to blue. Then I move the fate piece there. Now 3 things happen on move. You move it first, then you check to see if any investigators move to your lodge. And what that means is if there are ever 3 investigators on that spot, 3 or more, then they all move into your lodge, which, if you remember, your lodge is that space where your available cultists are. So there aren't 3 or more there, so nothing happens. Well, then you place one of your own cultists from your lodge, you place it there, and you place an investigator in there as well. So the more a space is used, the more riskier it is that you're going to get investigators in your lodge. So that's basically how you move. The other caveat of moving is that you can actually spend 2 cards of the same symbol and go anywhere except the space it's currently on. So if I had gotten rid of 2 red Instead, I could have gone to any other space. I wasn't strictly, you know, I didn't have to go to the library. So that is how you move. Well, let's go ahead and talk about, I already talked about what each space does. So I went to the museum, I can choose an artifact. Well, there's a way you can gain temporary control, which means if you don't already have three cultists there and more than everyone there, you get to roll a die, just one die, and if you happen to roll the Cthulhu symbol, then you get to perform the control action, even if you don't have any there. So, right from the get-go, I can move to the museum and immediately, you know, you roll a die, and if I mean, you have a 1 in 6 chance, but if you happen to get the Cthulhu symbol, you get to do the control action of that spot, and that's for every spot. So, and I went over what the control abilities are. Well, so that's pretty much your turn. Afterwards, what you will do is you will ready a spell, which is optional. So let's go ahead and move this right there. So, right at the get-go, you have three cards that count as, you know, that have abilities and stuff like that. Well, up at the top are ribbons and icons that correspond to the different colors and symbols in the game. How you ready a spell is you look at the requirements of what these need. So like to ready this spell, I would need a white and a green. Well, what you look at is you look at the space that the Fate piece is currently on, which would be the museum. And the museum has a green card here, but it also counts as a blue. Just like Otherworld counts as anything, Library counts as red, Gathering counts as green, Streets of Arkham counts as yellow, and the Ceremony counts as white. Not including every other card that's going to be underneath it. So that's why that spaces that you move from will get more cards, meaning that going to the Otherworld counts as a blue, a red, and a wild. But so I would look at my cards and be like, okay, well, do I have any cards that require a green and a blue? No, I don't. So I could not ready a spell. But let's just say I could. For some reason, let's say this spell right here needed a blue and a green. It doesn't. It needs 2 greens there, but you get what I'm saying. So how you ready a spell is you look at that, then you take it and you place it face down above your altar, right there, and you will see on your altar you actually have 1, 2, and 3 markers right up at the top. That means because you can only ever have 3 readied spells at once. So after you move, after you do the location, after you roll or have control, then you get to ready a spell. And you can only ever ready 1 spell on your turn, unless you go to the library, which means you can do it twice. Then what you do, after you successfully ready a spell, remember this one required 2 green, but just for example purposes, I'm going to say it didn't. Once you do that, you actually take every astral card, which is what these are, you will take them and discard them. So mainly, the thematic reason is that the stars are aligning for you to get the power to use the spell and ready it. And then everything basically just goes unaligned, and then every card there would go into a discard pile. So if I look like this, and I just needed the blue and the green, doesn't matter, that's not what gets discarded, every card there does. So that is what happens, and they just go to a regular discard pile. So that is readying a spell. Also, when you ready a spell, you actually have other symbols in your, alignment. So next time you were to ready a spell, your readied spells also give you extra symbols, meaning that it's somewhat easier to ready spells. Now, if you use a readied spell to ready another spell, this doesn't get discarded along with the other ones. So if you remember my example of this, and I readied this spell, and then they all got discarded, well, let's say I were to ready another spell, these would still get discarded, but this one would not. So that's how readying a spell works. Then what you do is if you have less than 3 cards, which I do, you would just draw up till you have 3 in your hand. There is no hand limit, but you will always have a minimum of 3 cards. And then an investigator raid would happen. So I'm going to explain how investigators raids happen. Alright, so I kind of set up the museum spot a little bit to what it could look like later on in the game. So let's say I wanted to go to the museum again. I would have to discard a blue or 2 of any of the same color, and then I would go here. Now, once again with movement, what you would do is you would move the fate piece to a new location, then you check to see if there are 3 or more investigators. That's before you even place yours or before you place another investigator. In this case, there are 5 there, meaning you take all of them and you would put them into your lodge. Yeah! So, they would all go into your lodge, kind of, and they would kind of look like this. And then you just do your action. So first, they all move to your lodge, then you summon one of your cultists, and then another investigator, and then you would do the action of that spot. And for example, I actually would have control. I wouldn't have to roll because I have 3 or more there, and I have more than other players. So then you do the spot, then you ready a spell, and then all of that I just went over. Now, if you ever have 5 or more investigators in your lodge, a raid immediately happens. So now let's go over what a raid does. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay. Now what you do is you will gather a die for each investigator you have there. So I have 5, so I would take 5 dice. Then you roll them. Woo! And then the symbols indicate what happens. So if you roll, which I didn't, which is good, but if you happen to roll this symbol right here, that means you would gain an elder sign. And I haven't talked about those yet, but elder signs are bad. You don't want them. What you would do is, let's say I rolled that star symbol, like that. You would take one of these tokens and you would place it over here on your summon track, starting at 9. So that is that. So if I rolled that, I would gain an elder sign, and it starts at 9. The way that you win this game is if you get your little summon marker all the way to 9. Now, this doesn't lessen the number you recruit. You still need 9, but something bad happens if they ever meet. Well, so your track will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 9. Elder signs start at 9, and they go 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and so on and so forth. So I want to get that out of the way. Elder signs, what that means is, like, so if you roll that, not only do you gain an elder sign, but an investigator also stays in your lodge. If you roll this symbol right here, the little scar, you gain an elder sign, but you also get to destroy a investigator in your lodge. So you would gain another elder sign, and that goes on 8. But an investigator goes back into the supply. Now, this is actually a pretty good roll. If you roll a Cthulhu or a tentacle, you just get to destroy investigators in your spot. So since I rolled 2 Cthulhus and a tentacle, 3 of them die, no elder sign gets placed. So if you roll this one, that means you gain an elder sign. It goes on the furthest space from the other end of the summon track. And if you roll this one, then you get to kill an investigator, but you still get an elder sign. So that is how a raid happens. Another way a raid can happen is if your supply of investigators goes out. So if there's a bunch of investigators on the board, and then a raid immediately happens to everyone. That's basically the game's way of allowing more of them to get put back into the supply. So raids allow you to, or raids are bad because they cause elder signs. So now let's explain the Elder Sign track. Okay, so the Elder Sign track is a way that you can lose the game. Over the course of the game, you're going to be allowed to move your summon track up one. One way to do that was at the Otherworld space. For each sacrifice cultist that you got to move this track up one. There are abilities that allow you to do so, and then so on and so forth. So, as the game progresses, you will be moving up your track, but also, if the game's not going in your favor, you will also be getting Elder Signs. Now what happens is, let's say, if you move your Elder Sign token, not your Elder Sign, your summon marker up one more, and if that ever meets with a Elder Sign, you would gain a curse. And I'll explain curses in a sec. But just know that whenever it first touches, so if that were to happen, or if another Elder Sign were to get placed, you would gain a curse. That does not mean you get a curse each time you go up. So it's not like if you went to 6, you'd gain another one, 7 another one, 8 another one. That's not the case. It's just a one and done, whoops, kind of thing. So as soon as that happens, you get a curse. Well, how you can lose this game is if your track fills all the way up to, if you actually go to 10. Once it completely fills up, then you lose and the game immediately ends. And what happens is you look at everyone else, and whoever has the least amount of Elder Signs is actually the winner. So that is one way that you can also win. You can try and swarm someone's board with Elder Signs and hope that you have less than everyone else, and then win that way. The other way you could win, let's say there weren't this many. The other way you can win is if you ever get your token all the way up to 9. If you get all the way up to 9, then you summon your Elder God and you immediately win. So that is the summon track. Okay, I mentioned before, a little while ago, that there are curses, and that if your track, your little marker, ever meets a Elder Sign, you would get a curse. There are other ways to get curses, but this is one of the most common ones. There are other things that will just say gain a curse. Well, these are the curses, and what happens is you don't get to look at this. You actually hand it to the person to your right, and on them are little triggers. Like this one says, when a cursed cult has at least 4 cultists at a location, then this immediately triggers. So in this case it would say, your cultists grow restless awaiting your order, sacrifice 2 cultists in that location. So the curses aren't good. You don't necessarily want them because they hinder you and you never know when they're going to trigger. You can have multiple curses that can trigger over and over and over. So let's say that you went to a spot or you went to the museum, picked up an artifact that told you to gain a curse, and then later on your summon track hits an Elder Sign. So now you have 2 curses, and they would both go to the person to your right, who would need to keep in mind that, hey, if they do one of these things, like this one says, when the cursed cult visits the museum or uses an artifact ability, then this triggers. So, like I said, let's say they move to the museum, and then they use their artifact, but they also have 4 cultists in the location. Both of those would trigger, and they would affect him at the same time. So that is how curses work. The last thing to talk about is readied spells. So you can actually cast these at any time. As soon as they're readied, you can cast them immediately, even if it's not your turn. Some will, restrict you to certain things, but other than that, then you have readied spells. Like this one that I readied says destroy 1 investigator from any 1 location or lodge. Just that. You just get to do that. And you can do it before you even move there, so maybe it doesn't have 3 or more. And then it just goes to a discard pile. And that is how you play readied spells. And that is how you play Fate of the Elder Gods. I believe I covered everything about it. I apologize that it may feel a bit all over the place, but it's kind of difficult to explain how you move and what control and stuff is without explaining the abilities, but I couldn't really explain the abilities without explaining, raids or spells or stuff like that, because, then that you wouldn't know what any of that meant. So I hope that you were able to follow along. One last thing I did forget to mention is that if you ever run out of investigators in your lodge, you immediately you take an elder sign and you take 2 from the abyss, put 1 into your lodge, and then 1 onto the space that you're wanting to go to. So that is basically, you know, the penalty for that is just gaining an elder sign. But you still get to play, and you just pull them from the abyss. Well, I hope this has worked out for you. I didn't explain the abilities of your ancient ones because they're going to vary, and there's like 10 or 11 of them in the game. Just know that when you go to the ceremony, that's how you activate it, and that's really the only way you can activate it. And then just full comprehension of what the locations do will help a lot, what the control ability does. But the game does come with very good player aids that have what you do in your turn and another card that tells you what each location does. So they are there for your, for your aid. Now, if I, of course, made any mistakes in explaining this game, let me know in the comments below, and I'll like and love it so that it jumps up to the top and people can see while they are using this video. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed. I hope it helps you learn how to play this game. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to support us, you can go ahead and click that link to go to my Patreon account. If you have any suggestions, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes below to go to my Board Game Geek list. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.